Okay, so this was an approaches question in the mock, but again, it's useful for anyone looking at an application question. Here it's an example of classical conditioning and also SLT, social learning theory. Okay, so let's look at this question. Read the following descriptions. So A, Sarah's terrified of lifts because she was trapped in one for 5 hours, so she can't go in a lift now. And B, Jerry watches his brother James. He's given sweets for cleaning their pet hamster's cage out, etc., etc. So how can the behaviours described in A and B be explained by learning theories? Remember now that learning theories covers your SLT as well as classical and operant conditioning, slightly different from the old spec. Okay, so first of all, with these application marks, the application questions, the very first thing you've got to do is put in some, what I would call AO1, some fact and knowledge about the approach before you even start talking about Sarah or Jerry. Okay, otherwise what happens is you merge the two and you lose either the application marks or your AO1, your factual marks. So really important that you tackle it very logically. So example A is definitely classical conditioning. Anything where they become afraid or something like that, it's got to be classical conditioning. Lots of you spotted that, which was great, but actually loads of you only got 1 out of 3. So why was that? Okay, first of all, you've got to use the terminology. You're writing very general, very kind of waffly answers that probably my dog could talk about and give a better answer. So you've got to make sure that you're using the key terms that you've learned in class. So always, if it's an answer involving classical conditioning and it's a STEM, as I say, outline classical conditioning features first. And the simplest way of getting your marks is probably by using the diagram, but you can't just rely on that. You must use and outline it using keywords. Okay, so we know that classical conditioning involves an unconditioned stimulus to an unconditioned response, and then we attach the neutral stimulus to get the unconditioned response, and finally, therefore, we get the conditioned stimulus, which stimulates the conditioned response. By then it's been conditioned. Right, little tip for you, whatever the child or the adult is afraid of, that is the neutral stimulus. Okay, so they're not, so we have this reflex to be afraid of certain things, or to vomit or something like that to certain stimuli, okay? But then the new thing that somebody's afraid of is always going to be the neutral, okay? So sometimes it's easier to do your bottom line first. Neutral becomes the conditioned. So you know that's going to be your bottom line, you know what that is. So you've just got to work out what the unconditioned stimulus is. Okay, so remember the key terms you want: conditioned, unconditioned, etc. Explain classical conditioning is about forming associations between a neutral stimulus and an unconditioned stimulus, a reflex like fear. Okay, and the thing the person is afraid of will always be the neutral stimulus, and then you apply it to the STEM. Lovely little video clip here from Miss Earl, which is useful for you to have a look at. So what you're going to do with this is you talk this through and then you literally apply those terms to Sarah in this case. Okay. The second example, B, Jerry watching his brother and so on and so forth. Right. First of all, you've got to spot that we're talking about observing. And as soon as you talk about somebody observing, it's not just operant conditioning, it's going to be social learning theory. Okay, so there are hints there. Again, let's use the key terms that go with SLT. So you must always put in, we observe role models and we choose to imitate them or not, okay? But here with social learning theory, we learn vicariously. In other words, indirectly. Now, these are very different applications to operant conditioning. So if you'd given your answer as operant conditioning, it was going to be wrong. You needed to spot that this child is observing a role model and therefore choosing to copy them. We could also include other AO1 stuff, so other fact knowledge, mediational processes come between the stimulus and response. So here between what the model does and how the person who's watching, observing, will respond to that. So there are mediational processes like attention. Did they pay attention? Are they motivated? What has motivated them to copy? And then finally, once we've outlined a little bit, we then start to apply that to Jerry. Okay, so Jerry observed James, his role model, being rewarded, and so he learned vicariously and decided to imitate a specific behaviour. In this case, it was cleaning the cage. So outline a little bit first and then apply it.